Hello everyone, and welcome to the how to play video for Dance with Darkness, a solo fantasy dice game on a single card. Now the premise of this game is the dark moon, that under the dark moon, the darkness awakens, and you're going to wield the power of light to vanquish it. So the overview of this game is that Dance with Darkness is actually played over 2 chapters. It's going to be the front and the back of the card. In the first chapter, which is available now, and what I'm going to be going over in this video, you must weaken the darkness before it vanishes under the new moon. In the second chapter, which is in development, which is actually going to be on the back side, I've got the art, but I don't have the game information on there yet. You must infuse the weakened essence from the first chapter, the weakened essence of the darkness, into a Lightstone before the ritual ends. And so the gameplay you see here, you're going to use a lot of the same components, but it's going to be a little bit different between chapter 1 and 2. But let's focus on chapter 1 for this video for now. All right, so chapter 1, Weakening the Darkness. The objective of this chapter is to reduce the darkness's strength to 0 while avoiding its attacks before it vanishes. You can achieve this by placing dice around it, all around here, that match its strength each turn, and if the total dice doesn't match its strength, it's going to attack back. Additionally, it's going to start dispatching its own dark dice in an attempt to obstruct your efforts, and this is ultimately going to drain its strength in the process, and this is how we're going to do damage to the darkness and win. But be warned, if you fail to completely reduce the darkness strength before the end of the new moon phase, which is the last turn, or you take too much damage, you will lose. All right, so let's talk about the components. Obviously, you need the game card here. 5 light dice, these white d6s. 2 dark dice, these black d6s. 1 darkness die, preferably the black d20. 1 health die, this red d6. And then 1 lunar phase marker, which is a Euro cube. So for setup, you're going to place the game card in the center of the playing area like I have here. I'm going to then place the darkness die in the center of the game card and then set it to 20. I already have it at 20. Okay. Then I'm going to place my health die next to the game card and set it to 6. So there's my health. Then I'm going to place the lunar phase marker on the first dark moon lunar phase. So right now, darkness awakened under the dark moon. There we go. And then your starting dice pool consists of all 5 light dice, and so right now we're just going to set the 2 dark dice aside. We'll get those later in the game. All right, before I get into playing the game, let me talk about the end game conditions. So in this chapter, it's going to end when any of the following scenarios occur. If your health reaches 0, you're going to lose. If the darkness strength has not been reduced to 0 by the end of the new moon lunar phase or the last turn, you lose. But if the darkness strength has been reduced to 0 before then you're going to win. And then you would proceed to chapter 2 once that's available. All right, so now let's get into playing the game. So this chapter is going to be played over a series of these lunar phases until one of the endgame conditions I just talked about is met. Sorry, I'm taking a drink. Each lunar phase consists of 4 steps. You're going to roll dice, place dice, combat, and cleanup. I'm going to go over the first 3 steps right now, and then we'll talk about cleanup afterward, only because placing the dice, how you're placing the dice and why you're placing dice, all depends on, is all based on combat, so it makes sense to go over all 3, and then we'll go back and I'll show you and actually play through step 2. All right, so step 1, you're going to roll the dice. Step 2, you must place every die onto one of these available spaces surrounding the darkness. So when a die is placed on a space, you must fully resolve the action there if able. Actions are going to target light dice in hand only, with the exception of this top left swap action that specifically targets both dice types in hand. So when you're going to play a die here, you're going to apply that action to one of the dice in hand. You would, once we start having dark dice in hand, you wouldn't apply it there other than this one swap action where you would swap the values of these 2. All right, so speaking of all the actions, real quick, the legend is in the rules, but as I mentioned here, you're going to swap. This is the only one that's going to affect dark dice. You're going to swap the values of a white die and a light die and a dark die in hand. This one, you're going to increase the a light die in hand by this die's value that you play here. This one, you're going to flip over a light 1, 2, or 3 in hand to its higher opposite face. So, you know, I could change this 1 to a 6. This space, you're going to decrease a light die in hand by 1. Conversely, you're going to increase a light die in hand by 1 with this space. This one, just like this, flipped up the 1, 2s, and 3s up to their higher. This is going to flip the 4, 5s, and 6s to their lower face. So I could flip this to a 1, or this 4 to a 3, etc. This one, you're going to decrease a light die by this die's value. And then this one, you're going to change a light die in hand to this die's value. So if I place a 6 here, I could turn this 4 right into a 6. Now, something about these dice values can wrap around from 1 to 6 and 6 to 1. So for example, if I played this die here that increases a die by 1 by this die's value, which is 1, I could rotate this and it would actually go to a 1. It would flip over to a 1 since it can wrap around. All right. So that's placing dice, but now let's talk about combat so you understand how and why we're going to be placing our dice. So step 3 is combat, and once all the dice have been placed, you're going to calculate their total value. You're going to add them all up. Now light dice are going to add to that total. Dark dice are going to subtract from that total. So for example, if these 5 dice added up to 24 and I had a dark die that was 4, the difference would be 20. That would be the total of my dice would be 20. And why that matters is once you've done that and added up all your dice, you're going to determine any damage you're going to take. So what you're going to do is you're going to compare the total value of the dice with the darkness's strength. So right now it's 20. If they have the same value, you take no damage. So if the total of my dice was 20, and they're at darkness is at 20, I would take no damage. But the example I gave in the rules is, let's say if my total value, you take no damage if they're the same. Otherwise, you're going to take damage by the amount equal to the absolute difference of the two values. And I throw an absolute there, meaning if I'm at 22 or 18 and the darkness was at 20, I'm going to take 2 damage. Doesn't matter if I was higher or lower. I'm 2 off. I'm going to take 2 damage. So yeah, you want to try and exactly match the darkness's strength with the total of your dice. All right, so that's determining any damage you take. Then you're going to determine the darkness strength drained. And you're going to reduce the darkness's strength by an amount equal to the total value of dark dice. So, for example, if let's say that with this dark dice in later turns, I'll start adding dark dice to my dice pool. If I had this in here, I had placed them all and they perfectly added up to 20, great, I don't take any damage. In this case, since this is 6, the darkness would drain 6 of its strength and it would go down to 14. So you want to get these values high while still making sure you're as close to that strength value with your overall dice so you don't take a lot of damage. And this is supposed to be meant like the darkness coming out and attacking you with, using its very essence to stop your plans, and slowly that's draining its strength, and that's ultimately how you're going to win. So with that in mind, now that you know how combat's going to work, let's go back to step 2 and play out our dice. I apologize if I altered these already. Okay, so let's increase this by 1. Remember, you're going to affect only light dice in hand, which we only have light dice. All right. If I place a 6, they're going to wrap around already to themselves. So I'm already at 12, and I have 11 here. So I actually need to reduce it by 3. So I think what I'm going to do, can I get close? So I'm going to put this 5 here, and it's going to move a 4, 5, or 6 to its opposite lower face. So this will flip to a 2. And now Shoot, I think I'm going to be one off. Well, no, I actually can play this fizzles because I don't have a dark die to swap out. I can just put this anywhere. I don't have any dice in hand to affect. And so now I've got 12 plus 8 is 20. Perfect. I don't take any damage on the first turn. And this is meant to kind of be an introductory turn, kind of get your feet wet. And so, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. So now we're going to go to step 4, cleanup. I didn't take any damage, and there's no dark dice yet, so the darkness doesn't take any damage. So cleanup is you're going to check if any of the in-game conditions have been met. Otherwise, we're going to move the lunar phase marker 1 lunar phase to the right. Actually, move these off as well. Okay, and now if a dark die appears under the new lunar phase, which it does here, you're going to add 1 dark die to the dice pool, and once a dark die is added to the dice pool, it's going to be there for the rest of the game. Okay, so that's it for cleanup. So let's go to turn 2. All right, ooh, that's 1, that's low. I'm going to copy. I always like to have high numbers first. Makes the math easier for me personally. Okay. I'm going to change this to a 6 as well. And then I'm going to see if this is smart or not. I'm going to be greedy. So I'm going to swap these values. So this becomes a 1. This becomes a 6. This is going to cancel out one of those 6. So I'm at 10. So these 2 dice need to be 10. Ooh, I'm far off on that. Okay, actually, no, you know what? I think I can do this. So I'm going to, this makes a 1, 2, or 3, flip to its higher side. So this will be another 6. So let's say that those cancel out. I'm at 10 and I'm at 9 here. Oh, shoot. I already played the +1. So I'm at, this 3 would make this 3. Shoot. All right, I'm going to be 1 off. Okay. I'll just play this anywhere. All right, so these cancel each other out. 12, 6, so I'm at 18. So I'm going to take 2 damage in the combat because I was 2 off. Not that great of a start. Okay, but I am, oh, why am I doing that? This goes to 14. There we go. So in the combat, since I was 2 off, and you always do it where the darkness is before, so they were at 20, I had 18, so I was 2 off, so I took my 2 damage, and then the dark die drained 6 of its strength, so it went from 20 to 14. All right, so that's turn 2, and then we go to turn 3. And yeah, that's how you play chapter 1 of Dance with Darkness, the weakening of darkness. So I'm going to show you one, if this feels too easy for you, you start playing this a bunch and you get really good at it. There is a game variant that adds some difficulty that I'll show you right now. So I'm going to reset the game. Let's move the dark die over here. Starting dice pool. 620. Okay, we're back to setup. I'm going to add in this extra die that I call the Dark Star. And the premise of this is the darkness channels the power of the Dark Star, a celestial force that devours both light and dark. All right, so it's a 5. Now what this is going to do is that whenever I place a die that shares the same value as the Dark Star, I'm instantly going to take 1 damage. So you see here, let's actually start the game now. All right, I've got a 5. So it would not make sense for me to play this 5 because I could play it if I really wanted to, but then I would take 1 damage. And all the 5s I take, each 5 I place here. So what it does is it makes you pretty much for this game, I'm going to be playing around 5s. And it just adds a little extra wrinkle of complexity and difficulty to the game. But yeah, so that is it for Chapter 1 of Dance with Darkness. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to showing you Chapter 2, Infusing the Lightstone.